Ever thought you might have died countless times without realizing it? Your consciousness could exist only in universes where you're still alive. This isn't sci-fi, but a controversial and logically coherent hypothesis in quantum mechanics. Quantum immortality is a fascinating concept. Each time a quantum event transpires, the universe divides into numerous versions, enabling you to continue existing indefinitely. Please watch this video attentively, as it has the potential to revolutionize your comprehension of the entire world, and might even keep you awake throughout the night. As early as the beginning of the 20th century, physicists discovered that by considering light as both a wave and a particle, numerous problems were elucidated, which ultimately led to the emergence of quantum mechanics. Concurrently, a question has perpetually lingered in everyone's mind because, in classical physics, everything exists with precision. For example, we can precisely measure the position of the Earth, the speed of a rocket, and your weight, among other things. All matter has a definite measurement value, but in quantum mechanics, all measurement results are probabilistic. Using a wave function to describe the microscopic quantum state, the probability of each outcome is calculated. Bohr and Heisenberg then explained this physical process. It's believed that when an observer measures, the wave function, in a superposition state, collapses into one of the possible outcomes. This is the well-known Copenhagen Interpretation. In other words, before observation occurs, no physical quantity objectively exists. However, many people at the time did not agree with this view, with Einstein being a typical representative, opposing the randomness of quantum mechanics with the phrase, "God does not play dice." As one of the founders of quantum mechanics, Schrödinger also did not agree with the Copenhagen Interpretation, and used one of the most famous thought experiments in quantum physics. Schrödinger's cat is used to illustrate how absurd quantum superposition and measurement collapse can be. Imagine a cat is placed in a sealed box with atomic equipment. If the atom decays, poison gas will be released and the cat will be killed. But whether the atom decays is unknown. If we want to know the cat's fate, we have to open the box, but then the problem arises. If we don't open the box, most people would usually think the cat has only two possibilities. It's either alive or dead. Either it's dead, and we must open the box to know the result. The unique aspect of quantum mechanics is that as long as we don't open the box, we will never know if the cat is dead or alive, so it will always be in a superposition of life and death, which is a half-dead, half-alive state. Although this sounds quite absurd, it truly reflects the uncertainty of the quantum world. If this hypothesis holds, then not just the cat but everything in the world, as long as unobserved, stays in an uncertain superposition. This shifts micro-level uncertainty to a macro-level uncertainty principle. Objective laws don't change with human awareness. The cat being both dead and alive defies logic. Furthermore, quantum mechanics poses an even more vital question. Observation grants the power to define reality. Then who is observing and deciding the entire universe? It was this incomprehensible perplexity that led a young American physicist to propose a radical solution, which shocked the world. In 1957, Hugh Everett III, a graduate student at Princeton University, first proposed the famous many worlds interpretation to explain the deepest uncertainties in quantum mechanics. He believes that the wave function might not collapse at all because the universe we are in is not a fixed linear one. It is a vast multi-branch quantum structure. Every time a quantum measurement occurs in the universe, such as a photon passing through either slit in the double-slit experiment, the entire cosmos divides into numerous coexisting branches, each symbolizing a potential reality. The reason we can solely experience one of them is that our consciousness selectively traverses along one continuous branch. Consequently, both conditions of the cat being alive and deceased genuinely occur. We just happen to exist in the universe where we observe the cat alive, while in another universe you are feeling sad about his death. Therefore, when the many worlds interpretation evolves the entire system into the Schrödinger equation, it no longer distinguishes between the observer and the observed, because all outcomes have already occurred and are distributed across different branches of the universe. Once we accept the many worlds interpretation, we cannot avoid another, more philosophical concept of quantum immortality. To better explain this idea, suppose you are sitting in front of a quantum gun connected to quantum measurement. Each time you press the button, the gun will decide whether to fire based on the result of a quantum event. According to the many worlds interpretation theory, each attempt will give birth to two universes. One outcome is that you are shot and die, and the other is that you remain unharmed, so your subjective consciousness will eternally exist in the branch of the universe where you survive without being shot under quantum immortality. In other words, from a first-person perspective, you will never be aware of your own death. Even if you press the button 100 times, your consciousness theoretically survives 100 times, and this probabilistic miracle appears extremely absurd to any observer because you can only be aware of the present moment. The universe in which you are still alive cannot perceive your state of death in countless other universes. This is the famous quantum suicide thought experiment. It is not meant to prove that you won't die, but rather to illustrate the continuity of consciousness in an extreme way. Meanwhile, this idea gained substantial support from many physicists in the late 20th century and provided a new perspective on understanding parallel computing in quantum computation, which is essentially occurring simultaneously across all universes, although we can only observe one of the outcomes. If this hypothesis is true, it would mean that in quantum immortality, consciousness is essentially a flow mechanism that allows us to find the unending path in parallel universes and continue onward. Since quantum immortality can't be proven, the scientific community remains very cautious about this view. Because you can only subjectively perceive your own life and death, but cannot prove your state in other universes. Meanwhile, he also raised an ultimate question about consciousness. That is, if consciousness truly exists, will it one day completely disappear? In this regard, the second law of thermodynamics sets a boundary for quantum immortality. According to the law of entropy increase, the universe will eventually head towards destruction. Over time, the sun will extinguish, protons will decay, black holes will evaporate, and all matter will disappear. When the entropy reaches its maximum, heat death will become the ultimate fate of the entire universe. That is to say, even if your consciousness could escape between different universes, when the universe reaches its end, consciousness will also come to an end. Although we cannot determine whether quantum immortality truly exists or if it is merely a fantasy based on the logic of multiple worlds, in a certain sense, it is more akin to a mirror, reflecting humanity's deep-seated fear and obsession with the concept of consciousness. Rather than serving as a beacon of hope, quantum immortality appears more like an unavoidable fate, preventing you from ever truly experiencing your own conclusion. You can only continually transition from one unfinished existence to the next enduring miracle. Perhaps you have already died countless times, yet it has never truly brought you to an end.